but
Mhm.
you're up moving around, and then will you be having home therapy for a while?
Yes, yes.
And that helps a lot.
Mhm.
And they give you exercises, but I mean, right at first, let's see, they give you pain medicine for like, I don't know, I think it was just a day and a half. So,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't nothing like when people tell you about knee surgery.
And I
It's
had
not
that
like,
I had a knee last year,
well,
my
it's
knee
not
done.
like that.
That's
It's
what people
much
have told me.
easier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what, so I'm hoping.
Well,
Yeah.
really, you can, I was amazed.
Good.
And, then you have outpatient therapy for a
Right.
while. And
Mhm.
then they have, excuse me, they have exercises, which you're pretty responsible for. You probably do them.
Okay.
And then, gradually, I mean, I'm up here on uneven ground. And do you have a walker?
Yes, I do.
So you may use that for a while, you will, and then you'll graduate to using a cane. And
Uh-huh.
then, see, I walk on uneven ground because it's the woods up here. So I use the cane for longer than you probably will have to. But
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
it'll work. You'll be kind of amazed that
Oh,
it's
good. Good.
yeah. You probably know that already. People probably tell you that, right?
Yeah, but I like to hear it from other people so that I'm not just having one person tell me, "Oh, don't worry, Barb, there's nothing to it." Now I'm hearing other people say that it's easy.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing to it. I
Well,
would say that the work
easier than the
afterward.
knee. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Easier than
Oh
the knee.
yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Barb, I have the newsletter from the Episcopal Church Women with all of their activities coming up. Are you interested in having me forward that to you?
Sure, that would be wonderful.
Okay, what is your email address?
It's bjplants, my name,
Okay,
@gmail.com.
okay. When I get back into my email, I'll send it to you. They're doing a lot of stuff virtually.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. And how is everyone this morning?
Great, Susan. How are
Good.
you?
Good.
Glad to
Yeah.
hear that.
Ann, are you there?
Hi, Mary. Are you in Wisconsin?
I'm in Upper Michigan on Lake Superior.
Oh, you're in the UP. That's right.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I know, you know where that is.
Yes, I do.
Everybody up here, we went through Wisconsin. I was just telling Barb, and there were no masks. We
Oh,
got into Michigan, and everybody is just doing what they're supposed to do.
oh.
And I want to call you on the phone sometime.
Oh, please do. Do you have my number?
Well, I have the, the
Directory.
booklet that you guys put out. Yeah. So,
Okay.
and Barb too. It's just that I haven't talked to Ann yet, and I'm a little shy about calling people, but I thought I would like to call you.
Oh, I would love to hear from you, Mary. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just think life hasn't changed too much for me. I'm still kind of sheltering in place.
Yeah.
Right.
I think some of you are doing the same, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we're kind of doing it all over again up here in Michigan, because the town that's doing so well is a little town at the end of the Upper Peninsula, and they don't even want people to come in their store. You can't go in there. It's a little store without a mask on, and they won't let you in. Earlier, months ago, they wouldn't let anybody in who was a tourist.
Good.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why they're safe now.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I know Greg thought this was going to be Bible study.
I know.
No, you all are doing great. Just
Oh, hi.
just check in. Keep going. Who else? How is everybody doing?
Yeah. Hi, Jan.
Good.
Chris, are you home now?
Yes, I am.
Ah, how are your travels?
I didn't get out of the RV the entire 4 days.
Wow.
Roger pumped gas, that was it.
Mm-hmm. And are you
How
here
are
for a
you?
while now, or are you?
Yes, yeah, we
Yeah.
are.
Okay.
Well,
Greg, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm going to be a little more subdued than normal. I woke up with a migraine, so I'm trying to get through that. Not a good way to wake up, but I'll make it. I'm getting
Well,
migraines more and more. I don't know what that's all about.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
yeah, that's,
Do you know
The,
what works for you when you get them?
Excedrin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know a while back, they warned that the barometric pressure changes would trigger migraines in those that are sensitive. And we've sure had a lot of storms and
Maybe that's
Mhm.
differences in going through.
it's definitely soupy outside. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
It
Are
kind
you
of feels,
sleeping? Are you sleeping with your air on?
yeah.
Okay.
I haven't had a sip of alcohol in a week, so it's weird to kind of wake up feeling like you're hungover.
What about
Mm.
caffeine?
Oh,
Are
I'm
you-
caffeine is kind of like by IV drip, so
Okay,
Well,
Hey,
that's not necessarily good.
yeah.
but it's necessary.
Could it be that your withdrawal from sugar, Greg?
Maybe, but that would have happened in the first 4 days. It's over.
Oh, okay.
If in case somebody's wondering, I'm having no sugar, no alcohol to try to lose some weight. Could lose some pandemic weight.
Sounds very
Are
healthy.
are you using any of the aspartame or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
no.
So
These are
you
questions.
found the quarantine 15 like the rest of us, huh?
It was quarantine 25 for me. I'm not even joking. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, because the first 2 weeks, honestly, probably like maybe not like some of you all, but for Andrew and I, it felt like summer camp. We were just, hey, we're at home. This is just 2 weeks. We'll get through it. Let's wake up let's work in our pajamas and let's eat whatever we want and drink martinis. And
Yep.
then after like Easter, I was like, well, this isn't changing anytime soon. So when the weather got better, I started to exercise, but the weight wasn't changing with the exercise. So unfortunately, I'm back on a plan that's been really useful for me. It's called Optavia, and it's a lot of shakes and bars and things
Oh.
like that. But it includes no sugar, no carbs.
Mm.
Well, that
Yeah,
sounds,
I'm a lot of fun to be around.
Greg, did you eat fruits and vegetables on this one?
You can eat vegetables, but fruits have too much sugar.
Too much sugar.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So you do 6 meals a day every 3 hours. And then you do, I'm happy, if anybody's ever interested, I'm happy to give you all the info about it. But it's, some of them are like powders you mix with water and it turns into a soup and you eat that. And then one of the meals you have to make yourself that's a protein and 3 portions of greens or vegetables. So oddly, the thing I'm making that I love is Thai lettuce wraps. So Barb, you may get some Thai lettuce wraps when you're home.
Ah,
to see
all right.
results after your surgery. Yeah. Although I have a good salmon recipe too with chimichurri sauce.
Mhm.
But that's not why we're here today, is it?
Hi, Pam. What's the latest on the baby watch?
Pam.
Any day.
Okay.
So, but she'll definitely have the baby. Well, I shouldn't say definitely. Is anything definite? We'll probably for sure have a baby this weekend.
All right.
And Pam, are you going out there?
We're playing it by ear. We're not. We're just gonna see how it goes and how the delivery goes, and then just give the kids some time to acclimate. Kids. So we're just playing it day by day,
Okay.
but no plans right now.
That's kind of like Joan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole different ball game with this, but at the end, we're still gonna have a sweet baby, a baby girl. So
And lots of pictures.
I don't take pictures though, as you know.
Well, they'll take pictures.
No, wait a minute. Thank you for laughing, those of you,
Say
because
what?
I think I've been a recipient of some of those pictures.
yes, I
Pam.
think so. I think so. So, and then, so on a positive note, yes, a sweet baby girl, Lydia Paul, will be born this weekend.
Hmm?
What's the middle name again, Pam?
It's Paul, Paul.
Like
And
McCartney?
Madeline's father-in-law passed away suddenly at 62, right after the kids got married.
Right.
And so that is his first name. So it will be Lydia Paul, Paul, after her father-in-law.
So I
Oh,
would
how
be remiss if I didn't tell you the biblical implications. I think I mentioned before that Lydia is one of the first baptized Christians in the church
Wow.
in the Acts of
Oh.
the Apostles, and
Okay.
Paul is the one. Paul baptizes her, the Paul.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
I have actually been to the site of her baptism. It's a beautiful, beautiful site in northern Greece. So
I have not had goosebumps for many months, and I just got them. So thank you.
there you
for that.
go.
Yeah.
I'm not crying. I have something in my eye, but
Oh, but I am.
yeah. But Lydia is a wonderful, wonderful person in the Bible and an important woman too. And that's in Acts.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have to study Acts after we get through Genesis. Who knows? Well, let's do some Bible. The Lord be with you.
And also with
You.
Let us pray. God, who caused all holy scriptures to be written for our learning, grant us so to hear them, read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest them, that we may embrace and ever hold fast the blessed hope of everlasting life, which you have given us in our Savior Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
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 All right, let me share my screen. I think these are my comparison rounds. And there we go. Oh, that's not it. Bear with me. Do you see this screen?
Yes.
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 All it fills the screen? Good.
Yes.
All right. Exciting day today, but we're going to begin with a new letter from the Hebrew alphabet. Let's see if we'll get through the whole alphabet before Genesis is over. This letter is Yod. It kind of looks like an apostrophe, and it's about the size of an apostrophe in relation to other letters in a Hebrew word. Yod is the smallest letter, the easiest letter to draw. All you need to do is touch your pen to the paper, and you have drawn a Yod. It is so tiny that sometimes people even forget to put it into words they are spelling. So what does the Yod do? It appears in another word. God is like that too. Thus, the Yod most often represents his name. And let me point out right here on the lower left is the name of God, which we pronounce as Yahweh. Reading right to left, YHWH. We did the H already a couple weeks ago. And now we've got the Y, where the Y comes from. Let's see here. Great. Like the people also claim for it on, and the Jewish people claim it for their own, like a dove, Yonah, soaring beyond the heavens, a dove searching anxiously for a place to alight. God, the Jewish people, and the smallest letter. Something of the Yod participates in the upper worlds. This is the Yod of Yerushalem, the heavenly city of God. That's Jerusalem, by the way. Something of the Yod breathes of the lower worlds. This is the Yod of Yetzer, the inclination of a person towards evil. So it is that Yod flies between them both so that they can be unification, Yikud, the joining of the upper and lower worlds. Yod is the hand of God, Yad Chazaka, a strong hand, bringing us out of slavery. Yod is the hand a person uses so that he will not lose his place in the Torah. Yod, a hand. Yod is the 10th letter. A person has 10 fingers. Yod is all that remained of Yaakov or Jacob. That's his name here in the upper left. our father after he wrestled with God and then became Israel or Yisrael, which begins with a yod. A tiny Jew within each and every Jew, no bigger than a yod. All right, so there you go. Jacob is right to left. Y. There's no A, so you make an A sound, and then that next letter. Well, actually, this is the letter that signals an A sound. This signals a K, a hard K, and then this is the B, which we've already done, which is also pronounced as a V, and that's Yaakov, and we're gonna meet Yaakov and his brother Esau right about now. But previously, just to catch you up from last time, remember we met the wedding of their parents, Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac is one of the patriarchs, and there's, we always speak of these patriarchs in threes: grandfather, father, and son. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, in that order. You still hear it even in an Episcopal service. We'll sometimes hear it referred to as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we spent a lot of time on Abraham. We spent a little bit of time on Isaac. Remember the poignant story of how he kind of fell in love with Rebekah. It really was love at first sight. How she willingly went into the partnership. When usually women were forced into these things, she chose to be part of it. And Isaac ceased to mourn his late mother, Sarah, as soon as he fell in love with Rebekah. And so now we're going to pick up with the generations that follow. Isaac basically exits the scene a little bit, but Rebekah is still going to be around. Isaac is here a little bit. I didn't mean to say he's gone, but he's no longer the main character. And we're about to start talking about their children, twins, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob especially is going to prove to be one of the more complicated characters in the whole Bible. Spoiler alert, he is my favorite character in the Bible because he's so complicated, and he is fallible. And there's a lot of wonderful stories that come out of Jacob's time in Genesis. And part of it too is that he is not always told in a positive light, as opposed to his father and his grandfather, Abraham and Isaac, or Isaac and Abraham, I should say. And that's an interesting kind of change in the storytelling, unique change in the storytelling, I would say. Okay. Any questions so far, or questions from last week? Right, here we go. Oh, wow, I forgot about these. If you're on Facebook, Anna Rossetti Sloan sent me a link to these, and which were kind of, I think they had already existed, but they were resent out. And in the wake in the last month of our incredibly timely pondering of just matters of race and the kind of plight of people of color, and a lot of whitewashing. And I don't mean to belabor it too much, but it needs to be belabored a little bit, that we're all, especially all of us here on this call, are beneficiaries of just our skin color. And part of the problem of Christianity is that the Bible is all about people of color. Not a single person in this story is white in any of the books of the Bible. And yet white people have been the dominant people throughout the last 2,000 years. Therefore, we're the ones who got the paintings in the Renaissance. White Europeans told the stories, painted the pictures. You're all aware of that, I'm sure, but it really is hard to find. Even doing the worship services each week, I am struggling not only to find music sung by people of color that's not copyrighted, but also images that aren't old white men with white beards. And so this group, and I'm sorry I don't know who it is, decided to take figures from scripture and illustrate what they most likely would have looked like by people of color, from native and indigenous to the lands in which they're described in the Bible. So they're not necessarily African Americans playing. Does that make sense? So,
Mm-hmm.
so here's a Noah. Here's some. I just picked out some people we've already discussed so far in Genesis. So there's Noah on the left, and there's Ishmael, the son of Abraham and the slave Hagar, and then that is Sarah on the right. Hopefully you can see that. Very elderly.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another image. There's Cain and Abel back from the early part of Genesis. Rebecca, the wife of Isaac. There she is, all done up in her veil, just like when she was presented to Isaac, remember? This is a good representation of what Jacob and Esau, who we're about to talk about, look like. Jacob, very dark skin, and Esau, what's most important about him is that red beard. Does anybody know much about Esau before we get into the stories about the two of them?
No.
Is any of this about the red beard or red hair?
Isn't that the red beard is how his father knows it's him?
Yeah,
Because his sight is failing.
there you go. See, you did your catechesis when you were a kid. Yeah, the red hair is gonna be a plot point. Exactly.
You know, I was reading this, I read a head on this in one of the comments that I put down is, why is the color red mentioned so much? Because they mention it in the red stew, and that when he came out, he was red. So I'm anxious to find out why so much about the color red.
Yeah, and we may be just stuck with some unanswerable questions, but we'll see, because we're gonna cover that right in the next few moments. So we're picking up in Genesis chapter 25, and we read up to verse 19, so we're actually going to be, verse 18, we're going to begin at verse 19, when Jacob and Esau are born. I'm reading from the Common English Bible. Here we go, CEB, Study Bible. Okay.
I'm sorry, what chapter did you say this was?
Sure, chapter 25, and we're on verse 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And definitely, you've figured it out by now, but it's fun to follow along with your own translations of whatever versions you have. So here we go. These are the descendants of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham became the father of Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel the Aramean and the sister of Laban the Aramean from Padan Aram. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, since she was unable to have children. The Lord was moved by his prayer, and his wife, Rebekah, became pregnant. But the boys pushed against each other inside of her, and she said, "If this is what it's like, why did it happen to me?" Boy, I'm really sad Sarah Burdick's not here, since she gave birth. Yeah. So she went to ask the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 different peoples will emerge from your body. One people will be stronger than the other. The other will serve the younger. When she reached the end of her pregnancy, she discovered that she had twins. Surprise. The first came out red all over, covered or clothed with hair, and she named him Esau. Immediately afterward, his brother came out, gripping Esau's heel, and she named him Yaakov, Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. All right, let me just
Greg?
pause right there. Yes, sir. Susan.
In the message, after Esau, they say in parentheses, hairy, and after Jacob, they say parentheses, heel.
Heel, there you go. Excellent. Really, so that's kind of like the etymology of their names is being worked back into the story a little bit. Does anybody's translation have verse 23 set off kind of like a poem?
Yes.
Yeah, most everybody?
Mm-hmm.
That's important. If you
Yes.
remember, this has come up before. It comes up a lot in the New Testament, but when that happens, that means that it's usually a song or something that they would have known almost by heart. And I probably talked about this before, but this means that that poem probably existed first before this story was written down. And it was like a legend or myth. So we're still in a section where it's hard to say, if you're one of the people like me that tries to put on your science hat, and go, are these people real? Did this really happen? This is, we don't have proof of the existence of these people per se, although we do have tombs we talked about last week where they're supposedly buried. It's hard because it's so ancient to decipher what is actual living fact and what is part of the mythology of who these people are, which is embedded, as Susan just pointed out, in their names. Jacob means heel, and Esau means hairy. So why those two things stuck? Why red? So far, it just seems like it's just part of the culture that they would always talk about these twins. And notice that they refer to them as nations. That's going to become very key later in Jacob's story, right? So that you can see how, I use this word a lot, and I don't mean it to be a negative word, but there is retrofitting of a kind of a current existence of Israel into the story as they tell their own origin story. And that's kind of a consistent part of this first half of Genesis. Any questions so far? Eager to see what's happening. So something's going on with Esau and Jacob, which is that they're in conflict from inception, it sounds like, or conception, I should say. Inception is a movie. Conception. And not only is the older twin coming out first and kind of being yanked on by the brother, but that symbolism, that metaphor is going to live with them as they get older. And I know the screen shows something that says underdogs and tricksters. I'll say more about that in a little bit. All right, verse 27. When the young men grew up, Esau became an outdoorsman who knew how to hunt, and Jacob became a quiet man who stayed at home. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was boiling stew, Esau came in from the field hungry and said to Jacob, "I'm starving. Let me devour some of this red stuff." That is why his name is Edom. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright today." Esau said, "Since I'm going to die anyway, what good is my birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Give me your word today." And he did. He sold his birthright to Jacob. So Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate, drank, got up, and left, showing just how little he thought of his birthright. Can you say foreshadowing?
Yeah.
Okay, actually a lot happened in that little bit. So there, Pam, is the question about red. And you see how the Hebrew is having fun with the wordplay here. So the red of Esau's hair is now identified with the stew that Jacob is cooking. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily generally accepted, but to me, I think of I can't help but the metaphor of Jacob kind of stirring the pot.
Mm-hmm.
What's he stirring? A red stew. It's like he's already messing with Esau. The thing about the birthright is that who was born first? Esau.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they're twins, Esau has the oldest son's birthright, which is, continues to this day in human culture, that the oldest son gets everything. So there is a tradition here where Jacob is implying that you can give away or abdicate your birthright, which famously was done by the King of England in the 40s, which led to the lineage that got us Queen Elizabeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
The King's Speech, great movie, by the way. Okay, I digress. The similar thing is happening here. Jacob is up to something, and you get the idea that he is, no pun intended, stewing on this for a long time, that he would like the birthright of being the son, maybe the son that his father loves more in Esau. And doesn't mean, I would say it doesn't necessarily mean Isaac only loves Esau or Rebekah only loves Jacob. It just means that each child, and this happens in most families, there's kind of one that the child identifies with a little bit more. I wouldn't go so far as to say Jacob is a mama's boy, but he definitely identifies with his mother. He's a little more at home. He's working on his cooking abilities. And Esau is muscular and brusque and out in the field and working and hunting, and they couldn't be more different. And there is a bit of envy on Jacob's part, probably about how his father feels about Esau. What do you all think? What's your impressions of all of this?
I had a question, Greg.
Sure.
Did you stop, when you stopped, was that the last sentence? Because I have one more sentence in my translation.
Oh yeah, what is your sentence?
My last sentence, well, you stopped at, he ate, drank, got up, and went away.
Yep.
And then I have, so Esau despised his birthright.
Oh.
Yeah, I have that too.
What is yours says that, Pam? What do others people's say? You know what I mean?
Thus
That's
Esau showed how little he valued the birthright.
Yeah.
That's how Esau shrugged off his rights as the firstborn.
Yeah, so there you go. Do you see how different those interpretations are in English, at least?
Do we know why he despised his birthright?
Well, that's the thing is, what translation are you looking at, Anne?
I have a study Bible for women.
Okay. It's probably NIV, New International Version. I could
That's
be wrong.
Christian Standard Bible.
Christian Standard Bible. So it's it looks like I would venture to say that since mine's a newer translation and some of these others are probably a little more recent. But this is good to see. You can see the evolution of modern thinking, which is they went back to the Hebrew word, and I won't belabor it by looking up the Hebrew word, but whatever the word is for despise in Anne's translation was revised to be translated as shrugged off, so not so much hated, but didn't care about. Does that make sense? And that's why the knowing what translation you have is such a valuable thing, because you can kind of go, okay, well, so for example, in our church, the worship version that we always hear is New Revised Standard Version. And for those of you that have read for worship, when I email you or Shannon emails you a reading, it is the New Revised Standard Version. But before that was Revised Standard Version, and that kind of ceased to be the standard in the 90s, I think. So these, as time goes on, people scholars have a more expansive understanding of Hebrew, and the problem with English is we have to pick a word and we have to stick to it, and English usually has one meaning, whereas Hebrew has multiple meanings. So the point is, Esau is not I think somebody's translation said he's not placing value on his birthright, or he's not understanding the value. It's not that he's stupid. He's just, what does it matter? I'm salt of the earth. I go out in the field. I hunt. And whereas Jacob realizes the long game and says, I want that birthright, and I'm going to do what it takes to get it. We'll see how far Jacob goes with it. All right, well, speaking of translations, who would like to read starting in chapter 26 to maybe verse 11? 1 to 11, anyone?
I will.
Mary, how about you? Go for it.
I have the New English Bible that I found up here in Michigan.
Hey, okay, we'll see what they have to say.
There came a famine, in verse 11, okay. There came a famine in the land, not the earlier famine in Abraham's time. And Isaac went to Abimelech, the Philistine king at Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt, but stay in this country as I bid you. Stay in this country, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and to your descendants I will give all these lands. Thus shall I fulfill the oath which I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as many as the stars in the sky. I will give them all these lands, and all the nations of the earth will pray to be blessed as they are blessed. All because Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So Isaac lived in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he told them that she was his sister. He was afraid to say that Rebekah was his wife in case they killed him because of her, for she was very beautiful. When they had been there for some considerable time, Abimelech, the Philistine king, looked down from his window and saw Isaac and his wife Rebekah laughing together. He summoned Isaac and said, "So, she is your wife, is she? What made you say she was your sister?" Isaac answered, "I thought I should be killed because of her." Abimelech said, "Why have you treated us like this? One of the people might easily have gone to bed with your wife, and then you would have made us liable to retribution." So Abimelech warned all the people, threatening that whoever touched this man or his wife would be put to death.
Thank you, Mary.
Hmm.
This should sound familiar. This happened twice before with Abraham and Sarah, didn't it?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
With the same, with one of this guy, Abimelech was in the same story for the second one. So it's, remember what I said, sometimes the Bible, in the Bible, you'll hear the same story again and again, and there's changes or tweaks to it, and they're retold for various reasons. Usually, it's not too cynical to say, the author of the more recent one was unhappy with the way the first one was told. In this case, it's a weird parallel to Abraham and Sarah visiting Abimelech, and it's just I think it's just a matter of, there's really no explanation for it except that it's just you know, these things happen in cycles. These situations repeat themselves over and over again, and it's unusual. This really feels like a story that got inserted here. Maybe it should have happened before the twins were born, you know.
Mhm.
There's not much significance to it, I should say.
Mm.
The big thing that does happen that's different this time, so this might be an argument for why it was retold, is that Abimelech does not take Rebekah into his household as the king did to Sarah in the other two stories. And Isaac and Rebekah laughing is a play on the name Isaac, which means laughter, which reminds us of Sarah again. This is from my notes here. It must have signaled something about the relationship that made Abimelech suspicious. In other stories like this, the foreign king finds out about a marriage because God punishes him or tells him directly. In all the stories, once the foreign king finds out, he acts honorably and restores the patriarch's wife to him. The modern reader may be puzzled by the fact that Abimelech lives long enough to go through the same experience with Abraham and Sarah, and then a generation later with Isaac and Rebekah. The reader also may find it strange that Abimelech didn't learn his lesson the first time. It wasn't prepared when the same thing happened again. This can be quite easily explained if we recognize that these are Abimelech stories from two different authors that were later combined in the book of Genesis. One from the Yahwist writer and the other from the Elohist. If you remember back from when we began talking about Genesis, there's really 4 different authors or schools of authors, and they're identified with letters J, E, D, and P. And these are basically 2 different accounts, and yet they both made it. They're both there. So let's move on. We're now in chapter 26, verse 12, and I think we can go maybe to the end of the chapter. Barb, what translation do you have?
I've got the Message if you want me to do that.
Oh, sure, that's great.
Okay. Isaac planted crops in that land and took in a huge harvest. God blessed him. The man got richer and richer by the day until he was very wealthy. He accumulated flocks and herds and many, many servants, so much so that the Philistines began to envy him. They got back at him by throwing dirt and debris into all the wells that his father's servants had dug back in the days of his father Abraham, clogging up the wells. Finally, Abimelech told Isaac, "Leave, you've become far too big for us." So Isaac left. He camped in the valley of Gerar and settled down there. Isaac dug again the wells which were dug in the days of his father Abraham, but had not been clogged by the Philistines after Abraham's death. And he renamed them using the original names his father had given them. One day, as Isaac's servants were digging in the valley, they came on a well of spring water. The shepherds of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's shepherds, claiming, "This water is ours." So Isaac named the well Esek, quarrel, because they quarreled over it. They dug another well, and there was a difference over that one also. So he named it Sitnar, accusation. He went on from there and dug yet another well, but there was no fighting over this one. So he named it Rehoboth, wide open spaces, saying, "Now God has given us plenty of space to spread out in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That very night God appeared to him and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Don't fear a thing, because I'm with you. I'll bless you and make your children flourish because of Abraham my servant." Isaac built an altar there and prayed, calling on God by name. He pitched his tent, and his servants started digging another well. Then Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Huzi, his advisor, and Philco, the head of his troops. Isaac asked, "Why did you come to me? You hate me. You threw me out of the country." They said, "We've realized that God is on your side. We'd like to make a deal between us, a covenant that we maintain friendly relations. We haven't bothered you in the past. We treated you kindly and let you leave us in peace. So God's blessing be with you." Isaac laid out a feast, and they ate and drank together. Early in the morning, they exchanged oaths. Then Isaac said goodbye, and they parted as friends. Later that same day, Isaac's servants came to him with the news about the well they had been digging. "We've struck water." Isaac named the well Sheba, oath, and that's the name of the city, Beersheba, oath well, to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beri and Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They turned out to be thorns in the sides of Isaac and Rebekah.
Ooh, that last verse, two verses, 34, 35, are really kind of like its own little mini chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and promising some difficulty coming up. But thank you, Barb. You had some tough words in there too.
Yeah.
All of those words that came up, and hopefully the Bibles you have are noting this or putting little asterisks by them. They are all places that have the same meaning as the word, of basically going around. So like quarrel became the name of the land. Shiba, the last one, means an oath or giving one's word, things like that. There is a Jacob's Well to this day that is a tourist site or pilgrim site in outside Jerusalem, and that is part of the reason why this story is in here, was to kind of help explain the origins of why that well is called Jacob's Well. And I think the other thing that's going on is that, can't underestimate that we're now a few chapters removed from Abraham's death. And remember all those promises, repeated promises from God to Abraham, that there will be blessing, there will be expansion of your family for generations here. And if, in case you're wondering what's happening to that blessing, well, it's clearly been transferred to Isaac. So now God is directly dealing with Isaac. And then and God is providing for Isaac and Isaac's offspring. So that's kind of what's going on. But as with Abraham, again and again, there's a threat to that covenant or that promise. And it's hinted at with Esau's, this little line here about Esau and his wife Judith, and how there's going to be some trouble. Any kind of questions or just observations so far? We going too fast, or we doing okay?
No, great.
We're doing okay.
Good.
Yep.
All right. Now the plot thickens. This is probably a story you're familiar with about Jacob's trick. I'm going to read.
Can I?
Oh, yeah.
The picture that you're showing here, underdogs and tricksters.
Yes.
What is this? What is this a picture of?
This is a painting of Jacob and Esau when they're still young men. This is still from the scene with the lentil stew. And the reason, and because of the lighting, I think this is Rembrandt. I'm not 100% sure. See how dark the lighting is from behind?
Yes.
They didn't. The painter really wanted you to understand who was who, so he put Esau in a red shirt, so you knew red.
You know, it's kind of interesting. They look like identical twins.
They are. I mean, they probably were at one point, and then just except that Esau had the red hair. We glossed over it real quick, but somebody had said, not somebody, the Bible had said, that is why Esau's name is Edom, after he took the soup. Edom means red in Hebrew. It's basically as if they were calling him red, you know, like people do today in a slightly derogatory way to like somebody with red hair. Anybody here have natural red hair? Grew up with it? Okay. Just wondering what names you were called, if so. So that's kind of what's going on there, is like, you know, his nickname became Red because of the red hair. It would definitely be perceived as unusual back then. All right, now we're in chapter 27, and I'm gonna switch to this other translation by Robert Alter. And it happened when Isaac was old that his eyes grew too bleary to see, and he called Esau, his elder son, and said to him, "My son." And he said, "Here I am." Just like everyone before him has said, "Yanani, here I am." And he said, "Look, I have grown old. I know not how soon I shall die. So now take up, pray, your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out in the field and hunt me some game. And make me a dish of the kind that I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, so that I may solemnly bless you before I die." And Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went off to the field to hunt game to bring. And Rebekah said to Jacob her son, "Look, I have heard your father speaking to Esau your brother, saying, 'Bring me some game and make me a dish that I may eat, and I shall bless you in the Lord's presence before I die.' So now, my son, listen to my voice, to what I command you. Go, pray to the flock, and fetch me from there 2 choice kids, that I may make them into a dish for your father of the kind he loves. And you shall bring it to your father, and he shall eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. What if my father feels me, and I seem a cheat to him, and bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing?" And his mother said, "Upon me your curse, my son. Just listen to my voice and go, fetch them for me." And he went, and he fetched, and he brought to his mother, and his mother made a dish of the kind his father loved. And Rebekah took the garments of Esau, her elder son, the finery that was with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son, and the skins of the kids she put in his hands, and on the smooth part of his neck. This was playing out like a movie almost, right? And she placed the dish and the bread she had made in the hand of Jacob, her son, and he came to his father and said, "Father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have spoken to me. Rise, pray, sit up, and eat of my game, so that you may solemnly bless me." It almost feels like a guy who's wired by the FBI going like, "Here, say that again." And Isaac said to his son, "How is it you found it this soon, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God gave me good luck." Good answer, Jacob. And Isaac said to Jacob, "Come close, pray, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are my son Esau or not." You really, I can't help but interrupt because it's kind of exciting. You really get the sense that this story has been told this way for generations. You can see a grandfather maybe telling this to their grandchildren and getting into the details here. As Jacob came close to Isaac his father, and he felt him, and he said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, and the hands are Esau's hands." dope, as Homer Simpson would say. But he did not recognize him, for his hands were like Esau's hands, hairy. And he blessed him. And he said, "Are you my son Esau?" And he said, "I am." And he said, "Serve me, that I may eat of the game of my son, so that I may solemnly bless you." And he served him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And Isaac his father said to him, "Come close, pray, and kiss me, my son." And he came close and kissed him. And he smelled his garments, and he blessed him, and he said, "See, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God grant you from the dew of the heavens and the fat of the earth an abundance of grain and drink. May peoples serve you and nations bow before you. Be overlord to your brothers. May your mother's sons bow before you. Those who cursed you be cursed, and those who bless you, blessed." And it happened as soon as Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob barely had left the presence of Isaac his father, that, what else? Esau, his brother, came back from the hunt. Dun, dun, dun. And he too made a dish and brought it to his father and said to his father, "Let my father rise and eat of the game of his son, so that you may solemnly bless me." And his father Isaac said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son, your firstborn Esau." And Isaac was seized with a very great trembling. And he said, "Who is it then that caught game and brought it to me? And I ate everything before you came and blessed him. Now blessed he stays." When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with a great and very bitter outcry. And he said to his father, "Bless me too, father." And he said, "Your brother has come in deceit and has taken your blessing." And he said, "Was his name called Jacob, that he should trip me now twice by the heels? My birthright he took, and look now, he's taken my blessing." And he said, "Have you not kept back a blessing for me?" And Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Look, I made him overlord to you, and all his brothers I gave him as slaves, and with grain and wine I endowed him. For you then, what can I do, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Do you have but one blessing, my father? Bless me too, father." And Esau raised his voice and he wept. And Isaac his father answered and said to him, "Look, from the fat of the earth be your dwelling, and from the dew of the heavens above. By your sword shall you live, and your brothers shall you serve. And when you rebel, you shall break off his yoke from your neck." And Esau seethed with resentment against Jacob over the blessing his father had blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, "As soon as the time for mourning my father comes round, I will kill Jacob my brother." And Rebekah was told the words of Esau, her elder son, and she sent and summoned Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, "Look, Esau your brother is consoling himself with the idea that he will kill you. So now, my son, listen to my voice, and rise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and you may stay with him a while until your brother's wrath subsides, until your brother's rage against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. And I shall send and fetch you from there. Why should I be bereft of you both on one day?" And Rebekah said to Isaac, "I loathe my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from a Hittite women like these, from the native girls, what good to me is life?" And there ends the chapter.
Whoa.
Wow.
Pretty dramatic, huh?
Yeah.
So I guess first I want to say is this really should remind you of the Cain and Abel story, but there's so much more going on here. So there is, in a sense, that it's a retelling of Cain and Abel, but instead of the murder or outright, just quashing of Abel, instead the killing is more metaphorical. It's that he's really undoing everything Esau had claimed to, and basically setting him on a path to really ruin his life. But there is retribution that happens, because he gets caught, he has to be sent away. I could say a lot about this, but I just curious, what are your questions or what are your observations from everything? I'll confess, I don't really know what to do with the last verse, by the way.
One of the things I was touched by was when Esau is when he is denied, his father keeps asking him who he is, and he keeps denying that that he really is. And it reminded me of Peter, before the cock crows. So that struck me as
Very
never
good.
before when I heard this, like, oh my gosh, it's not him, but he's saying, yeah. So
That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about it. Yeah. How many times, really 33 times you're going to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
I
point.
wonder if he would have done it if his mother hadn't suggested it.
Yeah, it's a good point because,
Oh, if he was devious enough.
right.
Yeah,
He
I
had
agree.
it has been carefully set up. It's a really well told story, except that there's some ancient Israel kind of peculiarities to it. But, it's set up that there are sides in this family, for better, for worse. And Rebecca and Jacob are kind of in lockstep. And it almost feels like Hagar and Ishmael, where Hagar's kind of like, what about my son here? Why is he not favored? So you kind of get a little bit of a revisiting of, basically, through no fault of Isaac's own, he had a privilege to him, and we can extrapolate this to today's situation too about race. But Isaac has a privilege about him that that just came by his birthright, and now the sins of the father are being revisited on the sins of the son, except that the sons, being twins, are duking it out. The mother, Rebecca, who we've already established has a lot of agency, because remember, she picked Isaac. She's proving that she's a bit of a what do we call in a soap opera, a vixen. She's Erica Kane kind of. She wants the son that she too might be jealous of Isaac and Esau's relationship, or she doesn't want Jacob, who may be, you can insert anything in here because the text doesn't give it to us, but you could say Jacob doesn't have the wherewithal or the street smarts, we might say today, of his brother, and she's trying to be protective of him and be like, maybe if you get a birthright, you, the hairless son, I mean, you can really go there if you need to and say, maybe Jacob is effeminate, maybe she's concerned about his health and safety. Give her the benefit of the doubt. But there is also this kind of idea of that there's Rebecca's just a trickster, and that this comes with son. If you look on the screen, I've got a couple of points from my Hebrew professor in seminary. This idea now really being introduced of underdogs and tricksters in the Bible. Women are tricksters often in the Bible because they don't have access to the normal lines of power like men do by birthright. So women have to be crafty in order to get what they want. Think of Sarah trying to get a baby and trying to have agency in the process and say, well, if this baby ain't coming anytime soon, certainly not from me, so I'm going to come up with a plan, and here, Abraham, sleep with the servant and have a baby and we'll be good. And then that plan kind of backfires on her. But we give her, again, the benefit of the doubt because she's got to try something, because otherwise she's just waiting for things to happen to her. So these are not passive women in the Bible. It's really powerful, in fact. Now, the trickster part, as it relates to Jacob, is that because he's her favorite, the men who are close to women, in this case Jacob, would also be tricksters. So he takes after his mother. Countless soap operas, stories. This feels like Alexander Dumas or Victor Hugo or all these things, all of these stories pick up on this kind of biblical theme of these twins and birthrights and who has the right to the family and who doesn't. Man in the Iron
It's
Mask.
life.
What's
It's
that?
life.
It's life. It is life. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. And everybody in here has siblings. Is that right?
Yes.
Everybody in this group have a sibling? Yeah. I mean, who hasn't felt at one point that one sibling's getting the upper hand on you,
Craig?
Yes, Susan.
Yeah, as I listen to this with the smooth and the hairy, it does seem to point at the milder and the dominant, or the masculine and the feminine, and mother is just very protective of the son that she feels needs more protection because of his characteristics, because of the way he is. she's closer to him because he needs her more.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Mhm.
He can't go out and hunt like his brother. So, you know,
Mhm.
what good is he? He's essentially going to be treated like a woman in adulthood. And I don't mean that in modern times like that's bad, but in ancient times that is bad, you know.
Mhm.
I have a question about mothers in the Bible, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like they really ever talk about a mother's love
Yeah, it's a
for
good
their
point.
child. This is favoritism, and I know that's part of life, but they never, it just seems to me, and maybe I'm missing it, but when I'm thinking about this, I think about, you know, as a mother and the love that I have for my children.
Right.
And they don't really show that side.
This is a really interesting point.
Hmm.
I think you're right, and I totally agree that that's there. I think that goes to serve that these are myth and legends
Written by men.
written by men. Yeah,
Okay, that's
and
good point.
good point. And they're not. Um, where you know, love does come up in the Bible.
Okay.
It's going to take a while. You could say that love between Rebecca and Isaac, sure, but when the love story really happens, really doesn't really start till Jesus. I think that might be controversial for me to say, but that's when we get into understandings of love.
And the thing is with love, I'm just talking about a mother's love.
Yes, exactly. But so with Jesus, you have Mary and the relationship
Right,
with him,
right.
you know?
Mhm.
Right.
It's when we're dealing with concepts and characters instead of real people who would have loved and all that, you know, and we're even I say I'm talking about the writers of the Bible, the Old Testament, are ascribing these kind of archetypes, not stereotypes, but archetypes to these characters who may or may not have been real. Yeah, love is not a consideration because they're trying to get a lesson across or a point
Mm.
across. So it's okay to be feeling cold a little bit about this. Later in the Old Testament, my mind is racing right now trying to think of examples. The closest thing that comes to love is really more of a desire. And I'm thinking of Samson and Delilah and David and Bathsheba. The love comes up unexpectedly, and I can't even think of mother to son love that isn't, because even with Abraham, all the talk of parents to children is about planting seed, figuratively and literally, you know,
Mhm.
setting up a hierarchy, a family tree, so to speak. When you do get unexpected stories of love, it's usually from things that were told more recently and kind of made it in at the last minute of the Bible, like the book of Ruth, which really talks about a love between two women that is not necessarily sexual, but very emotional. And King David has a relationship with a man named Jonathan, the son of Saul, which may or may not be sexual. We'd have to study that separately. That's in the 2 Samuel or 1 Kings. I'm not sure when. And it's interesting because it's not necessarily the love of possession, which often happens in the Old Testament of men to women.
Mm.
Yeah. So you're right to feel devoid. And as somebody said, these stories were told by men, and that's always something to keep in mind.
When that was said, because I'm working from two different Bibles here, I wanted to see who edited the Woman of Faith NIV Study Bible.
Right.
And to see if it was a male or female
Yeah.
that did it. And the person's name is Jean.
Oh,
So I don't know if that's a male Jean or a female, but I just thought it'd be interesting.
yeah, it is. There is the book, the Women's Study Bible, which is this is the Common English Study Bible. I know Barb has a copy. Most of the time in the Old Testament, from what I've seen, they're trying to describe the women as agents of change. And yeah, love, motherly love and things doesn't really come up until it really matters in terms of the Bible. I don't mean it doesn't matter here, but when we're caught up with real-time history, and
Yeah.
you get the outpouring of love and torture really from Mary as Jesus goes into his ministry, you know, as she really loses a son. Before the crucifixion, she loses a son. Is one way to think of it. Good point. That was really thought-provoking. Well, we might need to wrap it up here.
Yeah,
I might-
sorry, I didn't mean to get
No,
off
no,
on-
no. This is
No,
this is
no, no.
great stuff. We probably will pick this back up next week, and I'll do some research and see if there's any other things to say about this whole episode here of the birthright and blessing. But the stage is set basically where now the brothers are separate, and we'll have to see what happens on their path. The most important thing about Jacob is, and one of the reasons I like him, is that later Jacob is going to be the founder. This is not a spoiler in any way. He's going to be the founder of what ends up becoming Israel, ancient and modern. And it's part of Israel's identity to be a trickster, not in a way of deceiving or deception, but that it is known, you know, Israel is a small nation. They have no access to horses, no weapons, etc. When we get to the stories of Moses and Exodus, they are enslaved, right? So much like the metaphor of the women having, you know, they're, for all intents and purposes, slave to their husbands in the situation, you kind of have to be a trickster to have some kind of power in the situation. You kind of have to be devious to get through the patriarchy and get through the wall. And that's going to be wrapped up in the identity of Israel. And Jacob's fate is not sealed forever in this story. This is just the beginning for Jacob, and this is why he's one of my favorite characters, because there is going to be a redemptive arc, and I just think that's a powerful story. So, all right, thank you all. This was wonderful.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thanks.
I'm gonna
Thank you, Greg.
shut this down, and then I'm going to reopen it for worship in a few minutes if you want to join then. Remember, worship starts at 11:45 on Wednesdays.
Thank you.
Take care.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.